Hello, hello. Thank you for coming back to spend some time with me. If this is your first time, then welcome. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see. And if you're a repeat offender, then I appreciate you very much. Today I am bringing you a tag video. This is the my favorite things tag. I saw this on J.R. Carroll's channel. He is a booktuber I've been watching since I started BookTube. And I saw him do this and I thought it would be a lot of fun and not your typical tag. So I was not tagged, but I tagged myself. So let me get into the questions here. So the first one on the tag is, what is my favorite band? Well, I can, without reservation, say my favorite band is Linkin Park. Has been since I discovered Linkin Park. I don't know everything about them. I've always loved them. The only album of theirs that I didn't love was their last one. And there was a couple songs on there I really liked, but they're not the whole album. I don't know. Their sound changed a little too much for me there. But I didn't have a problem with their sound changing throughout. Some people, they really loved the first two albums and then they didn't really love the next couple or whatever, because they went more industrial and then they went more, they just change their sound as they go. And, to kind of paraphrase one of their songs, this, some people believe that just because they got the blueprint for how it's supposed to work, that's the only way that they're going to do it. And that wasn't them. They changed up. They grew up they weren't just a great band for like 3 years. They were a great band for a lot of years. And over that time, people grew up, people got married, people had children, people had life things happen that change you. And so their music changed and their sound changed. And I didn't have any problem with any of that. It was very heartbreaking when Chester passed, and that was really hard on me when that happened. It's because I really love that band, but it still didn't diminish my love for them. They're still my favorite, so that's my favorite band. 3 favorite films. Why do you do this to me? 3 favorite films, favorite books, favorite writers, favorite characters. I can't tell you these kinds of things with any real accuracy. So I picked what I was feeling at the time when I was answering this. My 3 favorite. One of them is Labyrinth, and that is a sentimental favorite from when I was a kid. If I was watching it for the first time now, maybe I wouldn't think it was as cool as I did back then, but I really loved Labyrinth when it first came out. I really felt connected to Sarah in the whole I wish I was in a fairy tale world more than in my own world. Life, divorced parents, step parents, little brother, in my case, sisters who were being brats. All of them competing to see which one of them can make my life miserable, or not really. I mean, my life wasn't miserable. It was just, it felt like that though. When you're a kid, when you're a teenager, you feel so much, so strongly. And I just wanted to disappear into a book. And I feel like that's Sarah, the main character in Labyrinth. And she did disappear into a story and had an adventure. And I don't know, there was something about that movie that really spoke to me. And David Bowie in tights didn't hurt. So that was the first one I picked. The second 2 that I picked I'm cheating because I can't narrow it down. But The Lord of the Rings, and I'm including The Hobbit in this, the Lord of the Rings franchise, the movies, they were very important to me when they first came out. When the first Lord of the Rings movie came out, I watched it 7 times in the theater. I know that's maybe a small amount for some people. Like my roommate went to watch one of the Star Wars movies like 22 times. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of desire, usually, to watch a movie more than once in the theater. Now, when it comes home, onto VHS or DVD or now streaming services, I'll rewatch it over and over. But in the theater, that's spendy and time consuming. And you can't do it in your sweatpants. I guess you can go to the movie theater in your sweatpants. I don't. So going to see it 7 times was a big deal. And The Lord of the Rings was one of those. I've never read the books yet. That's something I'm going to rectify sometime soon, I hope. But it was a story that my dad and I would sit and watch the cartoons, the animated Hobbit, and they had animated Lord of the Rings as well. But it was the Hobbit that we actually sat and watched. And I did have a little book, like a little. I don't know. It was not the full Hobbit book that was written by Tolkien, but I had a version of it, like for Disney type. and I used to read that, and he used to tell me about the story, about what he loved about the story and such. So when it came out in the theater and it was so good, my dad, he lived in California at the time and I lived in Oregon, and I really just wanted to get him into the same place as me so that we could watch it together. And we did get to watch it together. His first time watching it was watching it with me, and I loved that. My first time watching it, I watched it before him, but we got to watch it together for his first time, and that really meant a lot to me. So, and I've loved the whole franchise. I love even the Hobbit movies, even though they get some people hate on them a little bit, but I like them too. The last one that I picked was the Harry Potter series, and no, I couldn't tell you which one is my favorite. I couldn't narrow it down. They're all good, and they're all good for different reasons. Like the first couple of them are really kids movies, and the last couple of them are really not so much kids movies. But I mean, they're really good for different reasons. The overarching story is really good. I really enjoyed the films. So that I picked that whole film franchise. So the next favorites on the list is my favorite scent. And I feel like my favorite smell, my favorite thing I love is when I'm cooking and I'm toasting rice, particularly basmati rice in butter. Just toasting rice in butter on the stovetop and developing the rice to where it gets to a real nutty flavor. I love that smell. I love that smell. And I've almost burnt my rice before, just not moving on to the next step because I just want to keep smelling that. Don't burn your rice. It's not good. It's not tasty. But I love that smell. Rice toasting in butter. My favorite Disney film. Who can pick a favorite? I guess, is it okay for me to say Star Wars now that Star Wars is owned by Disney? I'm kidding. Obviously, Star Wars is not my favorite Disney film. That is not what they meant. I guess my favorite Disney film, between all of the great ones out there, I would pick The Sword and the Stone. There's something about The Sword and the Stone that I really loved. There's the Arthur and there's Merlin and stuff like that, but I really loved the idea. I guess it kind of went along with my daydreaming childhood. I really loved the idea of being, when he gets turned into a fish, and when he gets turned into a squirrel, and the world goes from this big down to this big, and it's a little microcosm, but it's a whole world in the moat that he's in, or the river, or whatever it was that he was a fish in. It's a whole little world down there. And when he's a squirrel, there's a whole world, and it's only contained in a couple of trees, but it feels like that's the whole world. And I don't know, there was something about that really appealed to me as a daydreamer, and I really enjoyed that story. I really enjoyed that Disney film. The next favorite is my favorite season, and I'm gonna be basic and just tell you it's fall, autumn. That's my favorite. It's always been my favorite. I really love when the weather starts to turn chilly, but it's not freezing cold yet. I particularly liked this weather. I particularly liked it in when I lived in Iowa. There was something about the fall. There, it got really windy, but it wasn't unpleasant, but it was a nice, cool wind, and the weather was still not very cold, but it was, cool wind, and I don't know, just something about it I really enjoyed growing up. I really enjoy here in Oregon when the trees change color. Not a whole lot of trees in Iowa, so that wasn't a thing there. But I really enjoy the trees changing color. I really enjoy. I don't love being hot at all. And the older I get, the less I love being hot. So when the weather is cooling down, when I can take out my sweaters again, I enjoy eating soups and stews and hearty meals. These are not the kinds of meals that seem to sit well in the summer or spring. So fall time is the time of my favorite foods. It's the time of my favorite clothing options. It's the time of my favorite weather. And, we're getting into the start of school, which always seems kind of, I don't know, hopeful or whatever. And the start of, my birthday's in the fall and Halloween. And I just love the fall. So what's my favorite seasonal drink? Not pumpkin spice. Although I don't hate on pumpkin spice like some people do. I don't know. It's pumpkin spice is cinnamon and nutmeg and stuff like that. What's to hate about that? But my favorite seasonal drink is a peppermint white chocolate mocha. I love peppermint and I love white chocolate. And so those two together, I really like that. And that's my favorite seasonal drink. Sometimes I'll go by Starbucks and get a mocha. I tend to make them at home more than go out for my coffee, but occasionally I will go to Starbucks for something like that. But that's it. My favorite article of clothing, I would have to say socks. I love socks. I love good comfy socks, and I like big, thick, fluffy socks, and I like all kinds of socks. Sometimes I wear kooky socks. Like right now I'm wearing socks that have like an animal. I think it's a lion or maybe it's a hedgehog or something, and it's sitting real grumpy like on a pile of bones. It's just a fun socks. And over Halloween I bought fun socks because they had Exorcist socks in the mix. So I bought a whole bunch of socks because there's Exorcist socks, and I was reading The Exorcist during Halloween, and I really enjoyed that. Sometimes it's just, nice comfy white socks, and sometimes it's colored socks, and it doesn't seem to matter. I just really like socks. Who is my favorite author? Well, that is definitely a good question. Next. Actually, I have a hard time right now with that question because I am still so new to BookTube. I'm just really getting into scratching the surface, really, of what there is out there. Before BookTube, I didn't pay attention, I guess, to ads and stuff like that. I just had my books that I grew up reading, or my books that I found occasionally. Sometimes I would find a good book at a bookstore and bring it home, or sometimes I would read, or I'd watch a show and somebody's like, did you know that was based off a book? And I'm like, oh, well, I go get the book because I really liked the show. But I don't feel like I really was in touch with what was coming out and what's new and what's hot and what's not and whatever. Now that I'm part of BookTube, I'm reading a lot of new things. I'm exposed to a lot of new recommendations that I wasn't exposed to before. So what used to be my favorite and what is my favorite now is somewhat in flux. And what's my favorite now may not be my favorite next year when I read many more awesome new books. But if you had a gun to my head, I would say Brandon Sanderson. Which probably wouldn't surprise very many people who have been keeping up with my channel. But I really have enjoyed getting into Brandon Sanderson, getting into his couple of his series that I've been reading now, and I really enjoy his work. I enjoy his writing style. Even though the prose are kind of on the simple side, I actually kind of enjoy that. When I write the way people talk. And I feel like that's kind of what he's doing too. He's writing the way people talk. He's not throwing in a bunch of flowery stuff. It's not poetry, but it gets the point across, and to me, it's enjoyable to listen to. So I really like Brandon Sanderson. My favorite spot to read and to write would have to be my dining room table, which might not be a popular choice for reading because dining room table seems like it would be too upright. People like to lounge when they read, but I don't find that to be very comfortable many times. I don't have a lot of places I can lounge that I feel comfortable. I can't lay in bed and read very much because I end up getting my mattress is kind of too firm and I end up my hips start hurting. I have a back problem and that doesn't help it. I sit on my couch, but that's just, I don't know, it's not as comfortable for reading for me as TV watching. So I don't really do that there as often, although I have before. But when I'm sitting at the dining room table, because I do a lot of audiobook listening, I can do that on my computer while I'm playing Minecraft, while I'm playing solitaire, while I'm doing something else. This is where I usually sit. That's where I usually write. That's where I usually read. What is my favorite food or dessert? My favorite food, you're stuck on an island and you only have one thing to eat for the rest of your life. Food is spaghetti. Specifically my spaghetti. I don't think everyone makes great spaghetti. I don't know, my first husband, he was telling me about ex-girlfriends that made their spaghetti with tomato sauce or with tomato soup with ketchup. I'm just like, you get spaghetti sauce. It's not that hard. There's a whole sauce made for this. And I like to augment mine with a bunch of different spices and things like that. But I usually buy a spaghetti sauce and dress it up. I just like spaghetti. I love noodles. I love pasta. And I don't know, there's not much to dislike about spaghetti. And if I had to pick one thing to eat for the rest of my life, that'd probably be it. My favorite time of day. I don't have one. I like the night. I'm a night owl. I like late night. I like 1 o'clock in the morning and everyone else is in bed except for me. Binge watching stuff on my TV or whatever, I like to be up when everyone else is asleep. So that's my favorite time. My favorite color is silver. No real story behind that. Just, I love silver. I feel like it's an odd favorite color. You don't get many favorite people who say a metallic is their favorite color, but that's my favorite. My 3 favorite YouTube channels. I can confine this to BookTube because that's what we're doing. My 3 favorite BookTube channels is a Rekindled Reader, Theo at Rekindled Reader. He's my BookTube buddy. He is probably the person, other than friends and family, who most consistently watches my channel. And we chat on the Grimoire Discord. He's super, super nice, and we kind of encourage each other through different reading things, and we like to read somewhat the same things. So he's one of my favorites to check in with and to watch, and I really enjoy his channel. The next one is Jordaline Reads. Jordaline is a character. She is just something else. And if cursing and things like that offend you, you probably don't want Jordaline. But I love her. I stumbled upon her, not even sure why. Probably she was reading a book that I had been looking up or something. And I stumbled upon her, and she was just, I don't know, she started her video out with talking about how stunning she is and how beautiful and how whatever, and it's just, and she's a stunning personality. I just love her. And the more I watched her, the more I wanted to watch her, and she's just funny. And I can't say enough good things about her. She reads primarily horror, although she does read a little bit of fantasy and stuff like that. But she reads primarily horror. She likes horror stuff. She likes dark academia. those kinds of, the darker side of reading. She likes that stuff, and so I often look to see what she's reading to see if I would enjoy any of that. I think she's a little further along in her enjoyment of things like body horror and stuff than I am, but I always love her synopses of a book, or the way she describes things. When she's telling you about a book, she just has a very funny way of doing it. I definitely recommend checking her out, particularly if you like horror, if you don't mind a very self-confident person with a potty mouth, and if you like to have a little fun with your videos. I definitely recommend checking her out. The last one is Elliot Brooks. I really like Elliot Brooks because she has a very straightforward way of telling you. She obviously loves the books that she's reviewing, and she reads quite a lot of stuff. She reads a lot of fantasy. She reads a lot of what I like to read, and I've gotten a lot of good recommendations from her. She's very she's kind of very opposite of Jordaline in a way that she's kind of more proper. She's kind of more, I don't know, PG definitely. But she definitely has a passion about reading and books and stuff, and she likes to do video gaming and stuff like that. I like that too. So I really like Elliot Brooks, and I watch her a lot. Now, those are just 3 of a lot of good booktubers that I have discovered. And all of their information will be down below, so that if you want to go check them out, if you haven't yet, you definitely should. So the next one is, what is my favorite musical or play? Now, I don't go watch a lot of musicals or plays, but my favorite would have to be Les Miserables. And I think it's my favorite because it was the first musical I ever went to go see. And when I was in freshman in high school, our choir was really tiny. It was like 12 people. And our choir teacher was brand new to our school. And I was brand new to the school as well. And I think she figured because she had such a small group that she could afford to take us all to see this production. So we all got dressed up, and she took us to the theater, and I watched it live, and there's nothing like it. I really wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, seeing as I'd never done something like that before. Les Miserables is based in France, and there's a lot of French words and or names and or pronunciations of things that I was worried I wasn't going to be able to understand or whatever, but it sucked me in. I loved the story, and I loved the production of it, and I laughed, I cried, everything that you're supposed to do. It was great, and I've gone to see a couple other things since then, but nothing ever touched the experience of going and seeing Les Mis. So that was my favorite. The last question is 3 favorite places that you have visited. Actually, I don't think it says 3 favorite places. I listed 3 places. I think it's just favorite places that you visited. And I couldn't really narrow it down. So, my first one was Las Vegas. I never really thought Las Vegas would be for me. I'm not a gambler. I'm not a peopler. Generally, there's a lot of people there, but I'm not into gambling, and the shows and stuff would be fun, but they're a lot of money, and I'm not someone with a lot of money, so I just didn't think it was for me. But I had an occasion to go in 2015. I went to Vegas for college. I was presenting research that I had done at a psychology convention. And I enjoyed that part of it, but I also just enjoyed the resort I stayed at. I enjoyed, my sister lived there at the time, one of my sisters, and she took me to the Strip and to see that, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed visiting there. I enjoyed visiting Canada. I've been to only a couple places in Canada, and I've only been there a couple of times. But earlier, in the 2000s, like 2008 and 9 and stuff, I developed agoraphobia, which, if you don't know, is fear. It's fear of wide open spaces, and it usually translates into fear of leaving your home, fear of going outside. Going outside would cause panic attacks. It was really bad. And the way I sort of cured myself of that was, firstly, therapy. But secondly, I started widening my comfort zone. First, my comfort zone was home, and then it was just an area of my city that I was comfortable with. Then it was my city, then it was my state. And then I decided just to get out, and I drove all the way to Canada. I live in Oregon. It wasn't days and days to drive there, but I drove all the way to Canada and left my country for the first time ever. And I know it's Canada. It's not, I didn't go to Tokyo, but it felt like a big step to me. And it really helped push me out of the anxiety to travel, the anxiety to leave my home base, my comfort zone, and it really did me a lot of good. So Canada is a place that I sort of have a love for because of my ability to do that. And it was the first time I was out of the country. And the last thing I listed was the cruise ship that I just went in November on a cruise with my daughter and my family for her birthday, for our first family vacation. I really enjoyed the time that we spent on the cruise ship, hanging out together, even hanging out separately, just being there. The atmosphere was very fun. It was very party, but it was also kind of chill, and I just really enjoyed it. So those were my favorite places to visit. And with that, those are a list of my favorite things. So I hope that you found this interesting and or enjoyable. I don't have anyone to tag on this. I tag you who are watching this now. You can either make your own video and put it up and say that I tagged you, or you can, in the comments below, give me a list of a couple of your favorite things. You don't have to do the whole list, just do what you feel like doing. Let me know, what's your favorite band, what's your favorite food, your favorite author, your favorite place to visit. I'm interested to find out about you, and I hope that you were interested when finding out about me. And so thank you very much for coming and spending this time with me. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe. It really helps out my channel and it doesn't cost anything to do. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.